Okay, so if you have to solve a quadratic equation, it is easier to do this in your calculator. You're just going to have to remember a few things. If you have a table or a graph and you pull off points, you've got to get your equation first. After you get your equation, you are going to use second trace 2, and you are going to find all of your zeros. So I'm going to do the first two, I'm going to do these two, and then I'm going to show you a couple, and then we'll look at the bottom two. So I'm going to clear this. Okay, so I'm going to go to stat enter, and I'm going to type in my table very quickly. 0, 3, 3, 0, -1, 2, 3. Stat over 5. I always write down all my values and then I write my equation. Y equals x squared. I have a 0 bx, so when I write it in my calculator, I'm going to write just x squared minus 1. X squared minus 1. So now if I want to find my solutions, those are my zeros. So I'm going to graph it, and then I'm going to do second trace and option 2. And now I'm just going to move as close as I can, go to the left and lock in. And now I'm going to get to the right side of that x-intercept a couple times, lock in, and my first solution is at -1. Second trace 2. I'm going to go to my calculator, move it over to the x-intercept. I'm going to go left a couple times and lock in. Then I'm going to go to the right a couple times and lock in. And my next solution is 0. If you're able to see it on a table, what you're going to look for is you're going to look for when y is 0, and there are your solution points. You may not see it in the table, so that's why I recommend putting it in, getting an equation, and going that route to find it, because it may not always be listed in the table that you're given. And this is how you can do this for the same thing for a graph. Now, I will tell you, on a graph, you just look at the x-intercepts. That's going to tell you what your solutions are. But if they aren't visible or they're in between whole numbers, you're going to have to type it in stat enter to get your equation. For here, we can clearly see that our solutions are at -1 and 3. It's crossing at a whole number. Okay, so let's say you've got one of these. You always want to make sure you have 0 or y on one side of your equals. It could also be f of x. Okay, because f of x and y are the same thing. So I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to type in 2x squared minus 98. I'm going to hit graph. You may have to do some adjustments. As long as you can see both x-intercepts, you do not have to worry about your vertex points. So I'm going to do second trace. I'm going to hit 2, and now I'm going to go left or right until, oh, there went my cursor. Okay, so that's as close as I can get to the x-intercept. I'm going to go left twice, enter. I'm going to go back to my x-intercept. Now I'm going to go to the right twice. If it disappears off the screen, as long as you know if you're going to the left or right, you're fine. I'm going to hit enter again. And my first solution is, so I'm going to make a note that we put this in y equals. My first 0 is at -7. Now I have to find this 0. So second trace 2. And now I'm going to move this cursor to the right, and I'm just going to wait for it to come over here. I know my x value has to be positive, so I'm watching those x values. And now I'm on the positive side, so now it should be coming up this way. I'm going slow so I don't miss it. There we go. Okay, that's as close as I can get, so I'm going to go to the left twice, and it disappears off the screen. That's okay. I hit enter. Now I'm going to go right twice to get me back to where I was. Now I'm going to go right 2 more times, and 7. And then I don't have to worry about solving it by hand. Same thing here. We're going to go to y equals. We're going to type it in. We're going to type in x squared plus 11x plus 18 and hit graph. Okay, so I've got 2. And I'm just going to use my calculator. I'm not going to worry about, I'm going to go ahead and find this one first since I'm closest to it. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to go left, enter, go back to where I was, and now I'm going to go right twice and enter and lock in. And then my first x value is at -2. And now I've got to go all the way around over here. So I'm going to do second trace 2. Cursor. There we go. Okay. That is about as close as I can get. So now I'm going to go left twice, lock in. Go back to where I was. Now I'm going to go right twice and lock in. and negative 9. Okay, so again, I don't have to worry about completing the square. I see I have equals 0, so this tells me that this can go into y equals. Same thing here, I had equals 0, so this tells me y equals. So I'm going to clear it out, and I'm going to do x squared plus 12x plus 18. If you have to complete the square or use the square root, typically your solutions are going to be decimals. Typically, not always though. These were not decimals. Okay, I've got to do some adjustments on my window, so I'm going to go out past negative 10 a bit, and I'm going to shorten up my positive. I'm sorry, I need to stay at 10, negative 10. I'm going to shorten up my, go a little bit more my negative x's and shorten up, kind of scoop my window that way. There, that's better. Okay, so second trace 2. And I'm watching my negative x's. Oh, there we go. Because I know this is closer to 0 and that was further away, so I was just watching my negative x's. Okay, that's as close as I can get. Go to the left and lock. Uh-oh, second trace 2. Go to the left and lock in. Go back to where I was. Go to the right and lock in. And then my first x value is negative 10.24. All right, now I'm going to find this one. Second trace 2. So I'm going to move my cursor all the way back around my parabola until I get as close to this x-intercept as I can. And I know I've got to get closer to 0. That's as close as I can get, so I'm going to go left twice, enter. Go back, go right twice, enter. And x is also equal to negative 1.76. And I'm rounding up because the third number is 7. All right. If they ask you to use the quadratic formula, you can. You just have to make sure you're plugging in correctly. If it were me, I would use my calculator as much as possible. But one thing I have to do is I have to make sure I have 0 or y on one side. Since I don't have a 0 or a y, I've got to move this 12x over, which is going to change its sign. And now I have to combine like terms. So I have x squared. I have a 2 minus 12, which is going to be minus 10x. Minus 16. Now I have equals 0, which is what I want to see. Now I know I'm ready for y equals. And I'm going to type in my equation. X squared minus 10x minus 16. I'm going to hit graph. And I may have to do some adjustments on my window, which I think I do. So I'm going to go back to negative 10. 10. And I still may have to do some adjustments on my window. So I'm going to take off some negative x's and I'm going to add some. I think I'm going to do negative 6 so I can count my 2's. There we go. Second trace 2 for my x-intercept. So I'm at 7, 2, 4, 6. Somewhere right here. So I'm going to go to the right to get to this one. There we go. And I'm going to go left twice, enter. Go back and go right twice and hit enter and lock in. And my first x is going to be 11.40. And so now I've got to find my negative x. So I'm going to hit second trace 2. And now I've got to go back around the parabola. So I'm watching my x's because once I get to a negative x, I know I'm getting close. 3, 2, 1, 0. Now I'm in my negative x's, so now I'm getting close. There it is. And this looks closer than the other. If I go left one more time, that's a little bit further away. So I'm going to use this, and now I'm going to go left twice. Even though I wasn't exactly on it, I was as close as I could get. I'm going to go back to where I was, and now I'm going to go right and lock in and hit enter. And x is equal to negative 1.40. All right, and now to solve. Brick is thrown from the top of a cliff with an initial velocity of 12 meters per second. The function, so here's my y equals equation that I can put in my calculator, used to represent the height. How long? Okay, so if they're asking for time, they're asking me for an x value. Will it take the brick to hit the ground? Well, what do you know about your y value when you hit the ground? It's at 0. It's the lowest it can go. So they're looking for an x-intercept. So I'm going to type this in my calculator. Negative 16x squared minus 4x plus 50. I'm going to hit graph. I'm probably might have to do some adjustments. Nope, I really don't. There's the x-intercept. because I can't have a negative x-intercept because that's telling me negative time. So I want this intercept. Second trace 2. I'm at 7, so I need to go, 7 would be out here a little bit. Actually, let me set my window up to what it would be when you clear your memory. Okay, second trace 2. Second trace 2. I'm at 0, 0, 0, 50. I'm at the y-intercept, so I got to go to the right a little bit. Oh, there it goes. Go slow. Okay, I think that's as close as I can get. So I'm going to go left twice, enter. Back right where I was, and now I'm going to go to the right, enter. And then X is about 1.65 seconds. And I can't see this in my, I could go to my table. Okay, so at 1 second it's at 30 feet high, at 2 seconds it's at negative 22. So somewhere in between 30 feet and negative 22 below the ground, it hit the ground. So you could use this as a guide to eliminate some answer choices, but it's not going to give you exact. Better to use your calculator. Hope this helps.